Deep inside your brain, roughly the size of a grain of rice, sits a small gland that every serious spiritual tradition on Earth considered the most sacred structure in the human body. The Egyptians called it the Eye of Horus. The Hindus called it the Ajna Chakra, the third eye. René Descartes called it the seat of the soul. The ancient Greeks believed it was the gateway between the physical world and the divine. Modern science calls it the pineal gland, and in the majority of adults living in the modern world, it is calcified, hardened, shut down, functioning at a fraction of its biological capacity. This did not happen by accident. The substance responsible for its calcification has been deliberately added to the water supply of most Western nations since 1945. The research documenting its neurological effects has been systematically suppressed, and the ancient knowledge of what this gland is actually capable of, including its ability to produce one of the most powerful consciousness-altering compounds known to science, has been buried under centuries of institutional denial. Today, we pull back the curtain. This is the story of your third eye. What it is, what it does, what was done to it, and what becomes possible when you begin to reverse the damage. Let's go deeper. The pineal gland is a small endocrine gland located at the geometric center of the brain. Unlike most brain structures, it sits outside the blood-brain barrier, meaning it is directly exposed to the bloodstream in a way that most neural tissue is not. It is one of the most highly vascularized organs in the entire body, receiving more blood flow per cubic centimeter than almost any other tissue. It produces melatonin, the hormone that regulates your sleep cycle and circadian rhythm. This much is mainstream science, uncontroversial, accepted, but melatonin is not the most significant thing the pineal gland produces. In 1990, Dr. Rick Strassman, a clinical associate professor of psychiatry at the University of New Mexico, began the first government-approved research into a compound called dimethyltryptamine, DMT, a naturally occurring molecule found throughout the plant kingdom, in the tissue of nearly every living organism on Earth, and, critically, produced endogenously by the human body itself. Strassman's research, documented in his landmark work, produced results that the scientific establishment has never satisfactorily explained. Subjects injected with DMT reported not just hallucinations, but coherent, structured experiences of contact with what they consistently described as other intelligences, other dimensions, a reality more real than ordinary waking life. And Strassman's hypothesis, based on the pineal gland's unique biochemical profile, its location outside the blood-brain barrier, and its known capacity to synthesize related compounds, was that the pineal gland is the primary site of endogenous DMT production in the human body. The seat of the soul, as Descartes called it, may be the organ through which human consciousness accesses realities beyond the physical. This research was shut down. Let's go deeper. Here is what makes Strassman's findings so extraordinary. The ancient world arrived at the same conclusions thousands of years ago, without MRI scanners, without biochemistry, without any of the tools of modern science. The Eye of Horus, perhaps the most recognized symbol of ancient Egypt, is not just a decorative motif. When you overlay a cross-section of the human brain onto the Eye of Horus, the correspondence is precise. The pupil of the eye maps exactly to the location of the pineal gland, The ancient Egyptians were encoding neuroanatomical knowledge in their most sacred symbol. The Hindu tradition placed the Ajna chakra, the third eye, at the center of the forehead, describing it as the organ of inner vision, of direct perception, of higher reality, of access to states of consciousness beyond ordinary waking awareness. The entire system of Kundalini Yoga was structured around the activation of this center as the penultimate stage of spiritual awakening. The Pythagoreans of ancient Greece considered the pineal gland the antenna through which the soul received transmissions from higher dimensions of reality. Descartes, working 17 centuries later, independently arrived at the same conclusion, calling it the principal seat of the soul and the place where all thoughts are formed. The Taoist tradition described a practice called the cultivation of the crystal palace, the space in the center of the brain where the pineal gland sits, as the central practice of inner alchemy. The goal was the activation of what they called the inner light, a direct, luminous experience of consciousness that transcended ordinary perception. Every tradition, every culture, every serious inner lineage that has ever existed on Earth pointed at the same small structure at the center of the brain. And then something happened to it. Let's go deeper. In healthy children, the pineal gland is soft, active, and fully functional. In the majority of adults in the modern Western world, it is calcified. Hardened deposits of calcium phosphate, what researchers call corpora arenacea, or brain sand, accumulate on the gland over time, progressively reducing its functional capacity. This calcification is so common that radiologists use the pineal gland as a landmark on brain scans precisely because it shows up so reliably on X-rays in most adults. It has been normalized, accepted as an inevitable part of aging. But here is what they do not tell you. Pineal calcification is not universal. Studies of populations in countries without fluoridated water show significantly lower rates of calcification. Research published in the journal Fluoride in 2001 by British scientist Jennifer Luke was the first to document what many researchers had long suspected. Fluoride accumulates in the pineal gland at concentrations higher than in any other tissue in the body, including bone, and fluoride accumulation directly accelerates calcification. Fluoride has been added to the municipal water supply of most Western nations since 1945. The stated justification was dental health. The research supporting this justification has been disputed for decades by independent scientists whose findings received almost no mainstream coverage. What received even less coverage was the neurological research. A 2012 Harvard meta-analysis, published in the journal Environmental Health Perspectives, reviewed 27 studies and concluded that fluoride exposure was associated with significantly lower IQ scores in children. The study was reported briefly and then quietly disappeared from mainstream discussion. The National Toxicology Program released a report in 2024 concluding that fluoride is likely to reduce IQ in children at levels commonly found in drinking water. The response from public health authorities was not to remove fluoride from the water. It was to question the methodology of the research. Let's go deeper. Fluoride is not the only substance implicated in pineal suppression. Chlorine, also added to most municipal water supplies, has been shown to interfere with the pineal gland's production of melatonin and related compounds. Bromide, found in commercial bread products and some medications, competes with iodine in the body and disrupts endocrine function, including pineal activity. Artificial light, particularly the blue light spectrum emitted by screens, directly suppresses melatonin production by signaling to the pineal gland that it is still daytime. The average person in the modern world spends the hours before sleep exposed to precisely the light frequency most effective at shutting down pineal activity. Processed food, refined sugar, and the dozens of synthetic additives found in the modern diet have been shown to disrupt endocrine function broadly, and the pineal gland, as a primarily endocrine organ, is particularly sensitive to these disruptions. When you look at the full picture, fluoridated water, chlorinated water, bromide in food, blue light exposure, processed diet, what you see is not a collection of unrelated lifestyle factors. You see a comprehensive environment specifically hostile to the functioning of the one organ that every ancient tradition on Earth identified as the gateway to higher consciousness. Whether this environment was deliberately engineered or simply emerged from the priorities of industrial civilization is a question each person must answer for themselves. But the effect is the same either way. The antenna has been systematically jammed. Let's go deeper. So what do you actually do about it? Because this is where the knowledge becomes practical. The calcification of the pineal gland is not irreversible. Research suggests that with the right interventions, the process can be slowed, halted, and in some cases partially reversed. The first and most immediate step is removing the primary calcifying agent. Filtered water, specifically water filtered through a reverse osmosis system, removes fluoride that standard filters do not. This is not a fringe recommendation. It is basic chemistry applied to the specific problem of fluoride accumulation. The second is addressing the other suppressing factors, reducing blue light exposure in the hours before sleep. Eating a diet lower in processed foods and higher in the minerals, particularly iodine and magnesium, that support healthy endocrine function. Iodine in particular has been shown to help the body excrete accumulated fluoride. The third is the practice of darkness. The pineal gland is activated by darkness. It is a light-sensitive organ that produces its most significant compounds in conditions of complete darkness. Extended periods in complete darkness, practiced deliberately as a form of meditation in the Taoist and Tibetan traditions, are associated with the kind of inner light experiences that practitioners across traditions have described for centuries. The fourth is the deliberate practice of third eye meditation, sustained, focused attention on the space between the eyebrows, which stimulates the neural pathways associated with pineal activity and has been shown in preliminary research to affect melatonin production and brain activity in the regions surrounding the gland. These are not miracle cures. They are the beginning of a deliberate reversal of a deliberate suppression. The gland that the entire ancient world called the seat of the soul has been systematically shut down by the environment of modern life. Reopening it is not mysticism, it is maintenance. Every serious spiritual tradition on earth agreed on one thing. There is a structure inside the human brain that serves as the interface between physical consciousness and something beyond it, a biological antenna, a gateway, the organ through which the inner light, What the mystics described and what modern researchers are beginning to document becomes accessible to human experience. They called it by different names, they approached it through different practices, but they pointed unanimously at the same small gland at the center of the brain, and then the modern world built an environment that shuts it down. Fluoride in the water, blue light before sleep, processed food disrupting endocrine function, a culture that has no concept of darkness, of silence, of the kind of interior space in which the pineal gland does its deepest work. Whether this was deliberate or incidental, the result is the same. The most sacred organ in the human body, according to every tradition that ever seriously studied human consciousness, has been systematically calcified in the majority of the modern population. You were never supposed to know that, and you were never supposed to know what to do about it. Now you do. If this opened something for you, leave a comment below. Tell us if you have ever experienced what felt like third eye activation. We read everyone. We will see you in the next one.